Baby, come sit a while. Don't mind the wind rattling them shutters. It's just the night reminding us it's listening. My name's Mae. Some call me Auntie Mae 'cause I've been mother, teacher, and midwife to half this neighborhood. But tonight I'm just a woman with a story that got thorns in it. And honey, you best believe it's true. I raised Keisha like she was my own breath. Her mama, my daughter Tamara, left this world when Keisha was barely 3 months old. Overdose, they said, but I knew better. It was loneliness. That kind of ache don't show on no death certificate, but it'll holler you out faster than termites in pine. So I took that baby in my arms and swore on my mama's Bible I'd give her everything I never had. Worked nights at the hospital laundry till my fingers cracked like dry earth. Skipped my own meds so she could have dance class. Saved every spare dime in a Folgers can labeled Future. Told her, baby, you gonna walk through doors I didn't even know had handles. And she did. Graduated valedictorian. Got into Spelman. Came home summers with her head high and her heart full. And him. Deshaun, handsome fella, smile like sunshine, voice like warm syrup, called me Miss Mae with just enough sugar to sound sweet. But his eyes, they never settled, always drifting toward my mail, my cabinets, the deed I kept on the piano like a trophy. Said he loved Keisha, said he wanted to build something real. And Keisha? She lit up like a porch light in July. Said he made her feel seen. So I stepped back, gave them the sunroom, the one with the morning light and the view of the garden I tended 20 years. Told myself, Mae, you raised her to trust love. Don't poison it with your old woman doubts. But then, things turned. First it was little things. My Social Security check got delayed. My collard patch, where I grew food for the church potlucks, got dug up for some storage project. Then came the noise. Strangers laughing past midnight. Cars idling like this was a bus stop. I asked Keisha, soft as Sunday prayer, baby, what's going on in my house? She sighed like I was the storm. Grandma, you just don't get it. Deshaun's helping us level up. Maybe it's time you let us handle things. You too old for all this stress. Too old. Like my hands don't remember laying these floorboards. Like my name ain't on that deed since 78. Like I didn't bury my husband under that oak and still wake up every dawn to keep this home breathing. That night, I didn't cry. Tears are for the hurt. I was past hurt. I was clear. Went to the back of my closet, moved the cedar chest, opened the lockbox behind it, pulled out papers, yellowed but strong. The original deed, the city's historic homeowner affidavit, and a letter from Sister Clara at the legal aid office dated last spring when I first felt that snake slither in. See, in Tacoma, if someone tries to push out an elder through lies or pressure, the law don't just protect bricks and mortar. It protects legacy, and it gives power to the block. So I made 3 calls before the rooster crowed. Now, I ain't gonna tell you what happened next. Not yet. But let's just say Deshaun ain't parked in my driveway no more, and Keisha, she's learning that love shouldn't cost you your home or your name. Baby, this story ain't over, not by a long shot. After that night, I moved quiet, like a shadow with purpose. Didn't slam doors, didn't raise my voice, just started watching, listening, remembering. Deshaun thought I was fading. Said it right in the kitchen one morning while I fixed grits. Keisha, your grandmama's sweet, but she's checked out. We can do what we need to now. Like I wasn't standing right there. Like my ears didn't work just 'cause my hair turned silver. Baby, I've been listening since before he knew what a mortgage was. See, He been telling folks I was confused. Told the mailman I forgot my own name. Told the pastor I couldn't manage my affairs. Even tried to get Keisha to sign some paper about temporary guardianship. Said it was for my own good. But I saw the way his fingers tapped the table. Nervous, greedy, like a man counting money that ain't his. And Keisha, oh, my heart broke for her. She wanted so bad to believe in love, she let him twist truth like taffy. Every time I tried to speak, she'd say, "Grandma, please, don't make this harder," like protecting myself was a burden. But I knew one thing. This house ain't just wood and nails. It's memory. It's blood. My husband and I bought it in '78 with cash from his railroad pension and my seamstress savings. We planted that magnolia the day we moved in. Buried our stillborn son beneath it in '82. This land holds our tears, our prayers, our joy. Ain't no smooth talker gonna erase that with a fake smile and a forged signature. So I called Sister Doris first. She's been on the block longer than the stop sign. Used to run the tenant rights group back in the '90s. I told her plain, "Doris, they trying to run me out my own home." She didn't ask questions. Just said, "I'll be there Tuesday. Bring the papers." Then I called Miss Lena from the church garden club. Lena's grandson's a paralegal downtown. She whispered, "May, you hold tight. We got you." Last, I dialed Pastor Evans, not for prayer, though Lord knows I needed it, because he sits on the city's Historic Preservation Council. And honey, this house is listed, built in 1923 by black tradesmen during redlining. The city got rules about messing with elders in protected homes. Rules with teeth. Tuesday came. Doris showed up with a thermos of peach tea and a folder thicker than the Bible. Lena brought her grandson, Jamal, sharp suit and sharper eyes. Pastor Evans rolled up in his old Buick, nodding like he already knew. We sat right here on this porch, the same one Deshaun laughed on like he owned it, and laid it all out. Jamal read the law. If an elder is pressured, isolated, or financially exploited by someone living in their home, the city can freeze all property actions and launch an investigation. And if it's proven, the offender gets barred and the block gets notified so it don't happen to nobody else. Deshaun came home that evening, whistling, keys jingling like he was king of the castle. Saw us on the porch. Saw Jamal in his suit. Saw the papers in my lap. His face dropped like a bad check. He stormed in yelling about interference and family business. But Keisha, she stood in the doorway, quiet. Watched him unravel. Watched him lie. Watched him finally show his true face. That night, she came to my room, eyes red, voice small. "Grandma, did I almost lose you?" I pulled her close. "Baby," I said, "you never had me to lose, but you almost lost yourself." And that, child, that was the real turning point. Keisha didn't sleep that night. Sat on the edge of my bed till sunrise, wrapped in that old quilt her mama used to love. Every now and then she'd sniffle, wipe her eyes with the back of her hand like she was still 12. I didn't push, just let the silence do its work. Sometimes truth settles better in quiet. By morning, she was different. Not broken, no child, not broken, but awake. Like she finally saw the man she'd been sharing her dreams with wasn't building a future, he was tearing down mine to make room for his greed. She went straight to Deshaun before breakfast, didn't yell, didn't cry. Just stood in the kitchen doorway and said, "You got till noon to pack your things. And if I find one thing missing from this house, I swear on my mama's grave I call the police myself." He laughed at first, said she was caught up in Grandma's paranoia. Tried to hug her like it was all a misunderstanding, but Keisha stepped back, said, "Don't touch me. Not after what you said about her." That's when he got desperate. Started throwing blame, said I was manipulative, that I poisoned her mind.
Even pulled out his phone like he was going to record her acting unstable. But Keisha just pointed to the door. "Noon," she said, "or I call Jamal." Jamal, that's Lena's grandson, had already filed a notice with the city's elder protection unit. Said if Deshaun didn't leave voluntarily, they'd issue a civil exclusion order. And once that goes on your record, good luck renting anywhere in Pierce County. He left at 11:47 a.m., suitcase in one hand, ego dragging behind him like a busted chain. Didn't look back, didn't say goodbye. Just got in his car and peeled off like the devil was chasing him, which in a way he was. For days after, Keisha moved like a ghost. Cleaned every room twice, washed the curtains, scrubbed the floors like she was trying to erase his shadow. I let her. Grief ain't always loud. Sometimes it scrubs. Then one evening, she came to the porch where I was shelling peas. Sat down slow, like her bones were tired. Said, "Grandma, how'd you know?" I looked at her, really looked. Saw my tomorrow in her eyes. Saw the girl who used to hide under this porch during thunderstorms. "Know what, baby? That he wasn't good? That he was using us?" I handed her a pod. "Child, I didn't know for sure, but I knew my worth. And when a man don't honor that, he don't honor you neither." She nodded, tears falling into the bowl. I thought love meant trusting him no matter what. Love means trusting yourself first and protecting what God gave you to hold. That week, Sister Doris started something new. The Porch Light Circle. Just a few of us elders meeting every Thursday, sharing stories, watching out for each other's homes, checking on folks who live alone. Pastor Evans even got the church to donate a security camera for my front yard. Keisha helped set it up. Said she wanted to make sure no other grandma had to fight alone. And honey, that's when I knew my baby girl's daughter wasn't just healing. She was becoming a keeper of the flame. Spring came soft that year, like the earth itself was breathing easier. The magnolias bloomed early, white petals drifting onto the porch like blessings. And Keisha, she started walking taller. Not with pride, no, but with purpose. Like she finally understood her name carried weight. She quit her job at that call center downtown, the one Deshaun pushed her into because it looked stable. Said she couldn't sit in the cubicle all day pretending everything was fine while her soul felt hollow. Took a part-time gig at the community center instead, helping teens with college apps. Said it reminded her of me back when I used to tutor kids after my shifts at the clinic. I watched her come alive again. Saw her laugh, real laughs, deep ones that started in her belly and shook her shoulders. Even started cooking again. Not just microwave meals, but real food. Smothered pork chops, candied yams, cornbread so golden it looked like sunshine on a plate. She'd set an extra plate out for me every Sunday, like I wasn't already living under the same roof. Said it was tradition. But the real change came when Miss Cora from 2 doors down knocked on our screen door one afternoon, eyes red and voice trembling. Her grandson had moved in to help, just like Deshaun. Started selling stuff out her garage, telling folks she was losing it. Said he changed the locks on her medicine cabinet. Keisha opened the door before I could even stand up. She listened, didn't interrupt, just held Miss Cora's hand like it was the most important thing in the world. Then she turned to me, eyes blazing quiet fire. "Grandma, it's happening again." That night we called the Porch Light Circle together. Doris, Lena, Pastor Evans, even young Jamal. We sat right here under the string lights I'd hung after Deshaun left. Soft glow, no shadows. Miss Cora told her story, voice cracking like dry twigs. And Keisha, she didn't just listen, she took notes. Next morning, she went with Miss Cora to the legal aid office, sat through the whole intake, helped to fill out the elder exploitation form, even offered to drive her to every appointment. I stood on the porch watching them pull off, and something swelled in my chest. Not sadness, not fear, pride, deep river bottom pride. Later that week, Keisha came to me with a folder, said, "Grandma, I've been thinking, what if we made the Porch Light Circle official, like a real group, with meetings, resources, maybe even workshops?" I raised my eyebrow. "Child, you trying to turn my porch into City Hall?" She laughed. "No, Grandma, I'm trying to turn it into a fortress." And just like that, it began. We started small, flyers at the church, a sign-up sheet at the beauty shop, but word spread fast. Soon elders from Hilltop, from the east side, even Lakewood were calling, asking if they could join. Said they felt seen for the first time in years. Keisha handled the calls, wrote emails, set up a little website, simple, clean, with a photo of this very porch at dusk. Underneath it said, "If you're being pushed out of your home, you're not alone. We watch, we protect, we remember." And every Thursday night, rain or shine, the chairs fill up. Stories get told, hands get held, and the light stays on. 'Cause honey, once you've been made to feel useless, the most powerful thing you can do is become somebody's shelter. Summer hit hard that year. Heat thick as syrup, air heavy with the hum of cicadas. But the porch stayed cool, thanks to the old ceiling fan I'd rewired myself and that shade from the magnolia tree. And every Thursday it filled up faster than church on Easter. We wasn't just talking anymore, we was acting. Keisha got a grant, small one, from some nonprofit downtown that supports intergenerational justice. Used it to print brochures, buy a tablet for intake forms, even rent a folding table from the VFW hall for our meetings. Called it the watch table. Said every elder deserved a place to be heard without judgment. Then came Mrs. Jenkins, 92 years old, lived on South 38th since 54. Raised 6 kids in that little bungalow, buried her husband under a dogwood tree out back. Her grandson, smooth like Deshaun, same kind of smile, moved in to care for her. Next thing you know, he's listing her house on Zillow as investment opportunity. Told neighbors she was in assisted living when she was right there watching from the window. She came to us barefoot, in a house dress, clutching a photo of her wedding day like it was armor. Keisha didn't flinch. Took her hand, sat her in my favorite rocking chair, the one with the crooked leg I never fix 'cause it reminds me of my husband, and said, "Tell us everything, Mama." By morning, Jamal had filed an emergency injunction. Pastor Evans called the city council rep. Doris rallied the block, had neighbors writing letters, taking photos of strangers touring the house. And me? I went to Mrs. Jenkins' home with a pot of stew and a change of locks. We changed them right in front of that grandson. He showed up screaming about family rights, but the sheriff's deputy, sister of one of our circle members, stood firm, said, "Sir, unless you're on the deed or have legal guardianship, you got no claim here." He left cursing, but Mrs. Jenkins, she stood on her porch that night, bare feet on warm concrete, tears streaming down her face, not from sadness, but relief. After that, things shifted. People stopped whispering about crazy old ladies, started calling us the Guardians. Local news even did a little piece, called us Tacoma's Silent Shield. Keisha was in it, standing beside me, both of us in our Sunday best, hands folded like we was just church ladies. But the reporter said something that stuck with me. These women aren't fighting for themselves. They're fighting for each other. And it was true. Because while Deshaun thought he was just pushing out one old woman, he didn't know he was stepping on a whole root system. Didn't know that when you hurt one of us, you wake up the whole grove. Keisha started teaching self-advocacy workshops at the library, showed elders how to spot financial abuse, how to read property records, how to say no without guilt. Said her voice used to shake when she spoke in public, but now she stood tall, like she was speaking for all the grandmas who'd been silenced. One night, after a long meeting, she sat beside me on the steps, quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Grandma, I think I'm ready to go back to school." I turned to her. "For what, baby?" "Social work. Gerontology, maybe. I want to do this full time." I squeezed her hand. "Then you better get used to early mornings, 'cause I'll be your first client." She laughed, real and light, and for the first time in years, I saw my Tamara in her smile again. Not broken, not lost, just rising. Fall came in like a slow sigh, leaves turning gold, air crisp with the kind of quiet that makes you listen closer. And by then, the porch light circle wasn't just a Thursday thing. It was a movement. Small, yes, but deep, like roots cracking concrete. Keisha started enrolling in classes at UW-Tacoma, online at first, then in person. Took the bus every Tuesday and Thursday, notebook in hand, lunch packed in the same thermos I used to send her mama to school with. Said she wanted to understand the laws better, not just to use them, but to change them. Meanwhile, the calls kept coming, not just from elders now, but from daughters, grandsons, neighbors who'd seen something off and finally knew where to turn. We kept a logbook, simple spiral notebook with a red cover. Every name, every story, every win, even the ones that didn't end clean. 'Cause sometimes just being believed is the victory. Then, one rainy October afternoon, a young woman showed up at the gate. Late 20s, tired eyes, baby on her hip, suitcase at her feet. Said her name was Tasha. Said her husband had kicked her out after she told him she was pregnant again. Said she had nowhere to go. Keisha opened the door before I could even stand. Took her in like she was kin. Gave her the sunroom, the same one Deshaun once claimed as his throne. Made her a plate of fried chicken and greens. Sat with her till 2 a.m. while she cried about feeling used up, invisible, like I only mattered when I was useful. Sound familiar? I watched Keisha hold that girl's hand, and I saw it, the full circle. The girl I raised now raising someone else's hope. We didn't have a shelter, but we had community. Doris brought diapers, Lena knitted booties, Pastor Evans connected Tasha with a job at the church daycare. And Keisha? She helped her file for child support, enroll in prenatal care, even pick out a name for the baby. One night, Tasha sat on the porch with us, baby sleeping in her arms, looked at Keisha and said, "How'd you get so strong?" Keisha glanced at me, then back at her. "I had someone who never let me forget my worth," she said. "Now it's my turn." That's when I knew this wasn't just about stopping bad men or saving houses. It was about passing the torch, about teaching the next wave of women that their value ain't tied to what they give, but to who they are. And honey, that's when the real healing began, not just for us, but for the whole block. Because when one woman stands up, she lifts the ground for the next. We started a new tradition that fall. Every first Sunday, we gather not just to protect, but to celebrate. Potluck on the porch, gospel music from my old radio, kids running barefoot through the yard, elders telling stories like scripture. And in the middle of it all, Keisha, my girl, my heart, walks with her head high, not because she won a battle, but because she finally understands she was never fighting alone. She was always part of something bigger, something that began long before her and will bloom long after. And as I rock slow in this chair, watching the sun dip behind the magnolia, I whisper the same prayer I've said every night since Tamara left us. Lord, let my life be a ladder, not a monument. Winter came early that year. Cold biting through coats, frost painting the windows by dawn, but the porch stayed warm. Not just from the space heater Keisha brought with her first scholarship check, but from the hum of women's voices, steady as a heartbeat.
By then, we'd outgrown the folding chairs, had to borrow extra from the church basement just to fit everybody. And it wasn't only elders anymore. Young mamas came too, like Tasha, now working full-time at the daycare, baby girl strapped to her chest like a badge of honor. Even a few teenage girls showed up, quiet at first, then opening up about boyfriends who checked their phones too much or uncles who joked too close. Keisha started a new session just for them. Know your worth before you give it away. Taught them about boundaries, red flags, how to spot a wolf in Sunday clothes. Said she wished someone had told her those things before Deshawn. I watched her lead those talks, voice calm but firm, eyes sharp with the kind of wisdom that only comes from getting burned and still choosing to light a candle. And every time she spoke, I saw my Tamara, not in her pain, but in her power. One night, after a heavy meeting about a woman whose son had drained a bank account, Keisha stayed behind, sat on the steps with a mug of cocoa, steam curling into the cold air. Didn't say nothing for a long while, just stared at the street light flickering down the block. Then she whispered, "Grandma, do you ever wonder if I'm doing enough?" I sat beside her, joints creaking like old floorboards. Enough for who, baby? For them, for you, for Mama. I took her hand, soft now from student life, but strong from holding up others. Child, you ain't here to carry the whole world. You here to pass the light. And honey, you been shining so bright, even the shadows got to step back. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I don't want anyone to feel like I did, like they're replaceable. You ain't replaceable, and neither is anybody who walks through that gate. That's the whole point. A few days later, the city council invited Keisha to speak at a hearing on elder protection funding. She wore the navy suit I'd pressed for her, hair pulled back neat, voice steady as she told our story. Not just hers, not just mine, but Miss Jenkins, Miss Cora's, Tasha's. Said when you protect one elder, you protect a library of history. When you silence one, you erase a whole lineage. Afterwards, a reporter asked what inspired her. She looked straight into the camera and said, "My grandma taught me that love without respect is just noise, and I refuse to be quiet anymore." That night, back on the porch, we celebrated with sweet potato pie and hot cider. Doris brought her famous peach cobbler. Lena played old Aretha on her Bluetooth speaker. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was holding the weight alone. 'Cause the truth is, child, revenge ain't about burning the house down. It's about building a new one and leaving the door wide open. Spring rolled back around, softer this time, like the earth remembered what kindness felt like. The magnolia bloomed fuller than ever,
petals drifting down like confetti for all we'd survived. And Keisha? She walked different now. Not lighter exactly, but grounded, like her feet finally knew the soil they stood on. She'd just finished her first semester with straight A's, and the social work department nominated her for some kind of leadership award. Said her community project, the Porch Light Circle, was being used as a case study in elder advocacy. I didn't understand half the words they used, but I saw the pride in her professor's eyes when she came to visit. But the real victory came quiet, like most true things do. One Tuesday morning, a man showed up at the gate. Late 30s, shoulder slumped, eyes red like he hadn't slept. Said his name was Marcus. Said he used to live down the street. Said he'd heard about us through his mama, who'd been helped by Sister Doris after her nephew tried to sell a car. He didn't come for help. He came to apologize. Said he'd been the one who laughed when folks called his grandma confused. Said he'd let his wife talk him into moving her to a facility, even though she begged to stay home. Said he only realized what he'd done when he saw her sitting alone in that sterile room, staring at a wall like she'd forgotten her own name. He whispered, voice cracking, "I didn't know. I thought I was doing right by her." Keisha listened without judgment, didn't scold, didn't shame, just poured him a glass of sweet tea and said it ain't too late to make it right. Turns out it wasn't. His mama still had legal rights. Jamal helped him file for guardianship reversal. Pastor Evans connected them with a home care co-op. And within a month, Marcus moved his mama back into her house with a ramp on the porch and a nurse who came twice a week. He started coming to our meetings, not as a guest, but as a volunteer. Said he wanted to help other sons see what he missed. That's when I knew we crossed a line, not into anger, but into healing. 'Cause real change don't just stop the harm. It turns the hurt into help. Even Deshaun's name stopped stinging, not because I forgave him. I never did, and I don't owe him that. But because he didn't matter anymore. His shadow couldn't reach us in this light. Keisha started hosting family reckoning nights, safe spaces where adult children could talk about guilt, regret, the pressure to move on from aging parents. Said so many folks carry shame like a second skin, and shame thrives in silence. But here, on this porch, we speak. We say, I failed her. We say, I didn't see it. We say, I'm trying to do better. And nobody gets cast out, 'cause redemption ain't a gift. It's a choice, and we all deserve a chance to choose better.
One evening, as the fireflies blinked on in the yard, Keisha turned to me and said, "Grandma, I think we should write this down, all of it. Not just for us, but for every woman who's ever been told she's too old, too soft, too much, or not enough." I smiled. "You gonna call it the Porch Light Papers?" She laughed. "Nah, I'm gonna call it What I've Done You Have No Idea." And honey, as the night wrapped around us like a well-worn quilt, I knew this story wasn't ending. It was just getting started. Summer heat pressed down like a hand on our shoulders, but the porch stayed cool under the new awning Keisha had the community center help install. Said we needed shade for the little ones now, 'cause more and more children came with their grandmamas playing jacks on the steps or chasing fireflies while we talked about deeds, dementia, and dignity. And then came the letter. Plain white envelope, city seal in the corner. Keisha opened it at the kitchen table, hand steady, but I saw the way her breath caught. She read it twice before looking up. "Grandma," she said, voice low like she was scared to break the news. "They're giving us a grant, a real one, enough to rent a space downtown, hire a part-time coordinator, even start a hotline. I just nodded, stirring my tea like it was any other Tuesday. But inside, my heart was doing a jig. We'd been operating out of faith and folding chairs for so long, I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to be seen by the world. Not just the block, not just the church, but the city itself. They called us a model of grassroots elder protection, said our approach, centering Black women's wisdom, intergenerational care, and community accountability, was replicable and revolutionary. Revolutionary from a porch. Keisha spent weeks planning, found a little storefront on Pacific Avenue, used to be a barbershop, then a laundromat, then sat empty for years. She painted the walls soft yellow, hung photos of elders from the neighborhood, set up a reading nook with books on inheritance law and Black family history, called it the Hearth, 'cause every home needs a center where the fire's kept. And honey, the day we opened felt like a homecoming. Elders came from all over, some in wheelchairs, some leaning on canes, some walking tall like they've been waiting their whole lives for a place that said, "You belong here." Young folks signed up to be legacy keepers, volunteers who'd help with tech, run errands, sit with elders who just needed company. Even Tasha brought her daughter, now walking and babbling in that sweet toddler tongue. Let her touch the quilt hanging on the wall, the one I made from Tamara's baby clothes. Said, "This is where you learn your name, baby. This is where you learn your worth." But the real surprise came when Mrs. Jenkins walked in, 93 now, hair silver as moonlight, but eyes sharp as ever. She didn't come alone. She brought her great-granddaughter, a college student studying public policy.
Said, "May," I told her about the porch. Told her this is where I got my house back and my voice. Keisha hugged them both, tears in her eyes. Later, she whispered to me, "Grandma, we did it. We built something that lasts." I squeezed her hand. "Nah, baby, you built it. I just held the door open." That night, as we locked up the hearth, the streetlights flickered on one by one down the block, and I realized this wasn't just a building. It was a promise that no elder would be erased, a promise that no young woman would walk in the love blind, a promise that our stories wouldn't die with us, they'd feed the next generation like good soil. And as we walked back to the house, Keisha humming an old gospel tune under her breath, I knew one thing for sure. The porch may have been where it started, but the world was finally catching up. Autumn returned with a hush that year, like the whole city was holding its breath. Leaves fell slow, golden and red, piling up on the sidewalks like offerings. And at the hearth, the air hummed with something new, hope with a plan. Keisha had started a mentorship program pairing elders with young women. Roots and Wings, she called it. Every Saturday morning, you'd see them. Miss Cora teaching a girl how to can peaches, Mrs. Jenkins showing another how to read a property tax bill, Tasha helping the teen mom fill out WIC forms. It wasn't just advice they were passing down. It was armor. And then, out of nowhere, Deshaun came back. Not to the house, not to Keisha, but to the neighborhood. He showed up at the grocery store one afternoon, standing too close to Mrs. Jenkins in the produce aisle, talking loud about misunderstandings and how things got twisted. He said he changed, said he wanted to make amends. Mrs. Jenkins didn't flinch, just turned to the young woman beside her, her great-granddaughter, and said, "Baby, watch how an elder handles a snake." Then she looked him dead in the eye and said, "You don't get to come back smelling like regret after you left stinking of greed. Walk on." He tried to speak, but 3 other women from the circle had already gathered, silent, arms crossed, standing like oaks. He left his cart right there in the aisle and walked out. Keisha heard about it that evening, didn't cry, didn't rage, just sat on the porch steps, quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Grandma, I used to think seeing him would break me." "And now?" I asked. "Now I feel sorry for him because he still thinks love is something you take, and I know is something you protect." That week, she added a new session at the hearth, reclaiming your peace. Not about revenge, never that, but about boundaries so strong no ghost can cross them. Meanwhile, the hotline started ringing more than ever, not just from Tacoma now, but Seattle, Olympia, even Spokane. Women hearing whispers of our work, calling late at night, voices trembling. "Is it true? Do you really help folks like me?" Keisha made sure every call got answered, even if it was just to say, "I believe you." Even if all they needed was to hear another Black woman say, "You ain't crazy, you're clear." One rainy Thursday, a young woman drove all the way from Bremerton, said her fiance had been isolating her from her family, controlling her money, telling her she'd never make it alone. She'd seen a flyer at a bus stop, just our logo, a lit porch light, and the words, "You are not alone." She sat in the hearth for 3 hours, wrapped in a donated shawl, eating soup Doris brought. By the time she left, she had a safety plan, a bus pass, and a promise. If she ever needed a place to land, this door would open. That night, Keisha came home exhausted but glowing. Said, "Grandma, I finally get it. This ain't just about houses or money. It's about reminding people they're worthy of safety." I rocked slow in my chair, watching the street lights blink on one by one. "Then you better keep lighting the way, baby." 'Cause the truth is, child, when you've been told you're nothing, the most radical thing you can do is build a home where everybody is somebody. And honey, we weren't just building it, we were living it. Winter came again, but this time it didn't feel like an ending. Felt like a gathering, like the world was drawing close, wrapping itself in quiet so we could hear each other better. The hearth was warm with the smell of cinnamon and old books, the hum of women talking low over coffee, the soft clack of knitting needles as Lena taught a group of teens how to make prayer shawls for elders in the hospital. Keisha had turned the back room into a little archive, filled with oral histories, family trees, even recordings of porch meetings. Said if they couldn't find our stories in textbooks, we'd write our own. And then on a Tuesday so cold the pipes groaned, Keisha got the call. Her professor from UW, voice shaken, barely able to get the words out, said the state social work board had approved her proposal, not just for a class, but for a full certification track, community-based elder advocacy rooted in Black matriarchal wisdom, trauma-informed care, and neighborhood-led protection. They wanted her to design the curriculum, to teach it. She sat at the kitchen table for a long time after, staring at her hands like they'd grown new power overnight. "Grandma, they're going to train social workers using our model, using our porch." I didn't say much, just poured her a cup of tea, chamomile with honey, the way she liked it, and placed it in front of her. "Then you better make sure they teach them to listen more than they talk." She smiled through tears. "I will." That weekend, we held a special circle meeting, just the original crew. Doris, Lena, Pastor Evans, Mrs. Jenkins, Tasha, even Marcus and his mama. We sat in a circle right there in the hearth, hands clasped like we were sealing a covenant. Keisha stood in the center, not as a leader, but as a bridge. Said, everything I've done, I learned from you, from your pain, your patience, your refusal to disappear. This certification is not mine, it's ours. Doris wiped her eyes with the edge of her sweater. Girl, you just made sure no elder in this state ever has to fight alone again. Later that night, as we walked home under a sky full of stars, Keisha stopped at the old house, stood on the porch where it all began, where Deshaun once laughed like he owned the air, where she once whispered, "Did I almost lose you?" Now the porch light burned steady. She turned to me, snow dusting her shoulders like Grace. Grandma, I think it's time I told the whole story, not just in class, but to the world. I knew what she meant. The book, the one she'd been scribbling notes for in the margins of her textbooks, the one that started with betrayal but ended with a whole community rising. I said, "You ready?" She looked out at the street, quiet, sleeping, safe. She said, "I've been ready. I just needed to know I wasn't the only one who remembered." And honey, as the wind carried the scent of wood smoke from a neighbor's chimney, I knew this story wasn't just hers. It was ours. And the world needed to hear it. Spring bloomed late that year, like it was waiting for us to catch our breath. The magnolia finally burst open, white petals drifting down like blessings from heaven. And the porch was full again, not just with chairs and casseroles, but with truth. Keisha's book dropped on a Tuesday. Simple cover, just a photo of this very porch at dusk, light glowing soft through the screen door. And the title, What I've Done, You Have No Idea. Inside, she told it all. Deshaun, the betrayal, the fear, the quiet rage that turned into something stronger. But more than that, she told our stories, Mrs. Jenkins, Tasha's, Doris, mine. Every woman who'd been told she was too old, too soft, too much, or not enough, and chose to rise anyway. It sold out in 3 days. But honey, the real victory wasn't the sales. It was the letters. Poured in from Georgia, Chicago, Detroit, even Mississippi. Women saying, "This is my story too." Saying, "I started my own porch circle." Saying, "You gave me the courage to leave." Keisha read every one, answered as many as she could. And every Sunday now, she hosts a virtual circle. Elders and young folks from all over, sharing stories, strategies, strength. Calls it the Light Network.
Me, I still live in the house, still rock on this porch. But I don't carry the weight alone no more. 'Cause the truth is, child, revenge ain't about tearing somebody down. It's about building something so beautiful, so unshakable, that the ones who tried to erase you can't even find your shadow. Deshaun, heard he moved out of state. Tried to message Keisha once, just a sad little thinking of you text. She didn't reply. Didn't need to. Her life is too full for ghosts. And Keisha, she walks with her head high, not 'cause she won, but 'cause she knows her worth was never his to decide. Last week, she brought her first social work class to the hearth. Young folks, black, brown, queer, disabled, all wide-eyed, taking notes like scripture. She stood right where I used to stand and said, "This ain't charity, this is justice. And it starts with listening to the women the world forgot." After they left, she sat beside me on the steps, quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Grandma, thank you for not giving up on me." I squeezed her hand. I said, "Baby, I never could. You were always my tomorrow." Now, if you've been listening to my story, if it stirs something in your spirit, I got one last thing to ask. Go to Whispers of Auntie Mae, hit subscribe, ring that bell, share this with somebody who needs to hear it, 'cause this ain't just my story, it's yours too. And as long as we keep telling it, they'll never silence us again. So light your porch, child, and never, ever let 'em make you feel useless.